Councillor Bates would kindly lead us in the Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you. Can we sit down? I think we now have audio. Pleasure to see you all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed for the most part. And the first of the things I must do this evening is welcome a new member, Andy Adams, from Penkridge and Acton Trussell Ward, Penkridge East, in fact. Andy, actually, I'm having difficulty spotting you. Could you possibly make yourself known to them? Ah, there you are. This is Andy. Say hello. And that, of course, brings us to the agenda, item 1. Do we have any priority business, Mr. Haywood?
Chairman, I can confirm there's no priority business this evening.
Thank you. Item 2, the minutes. The minutes of the meeting of the Council held on the 12th of July 2022 are before you tonight at page 5 of your pack. Is it your wish that I confirm and sign the minutes of the Council held on the 12th of July 2022? I'll take that as a unanimous aye. Thank you. Okay, that sounded ever so slightly dodgy. Item number 3, apologies. Are there any apologies, Mr. Haywood?
Yes, Chairman, we have apologies from councillors Upton, Boyle, Sisley, Bernard Williams, David Williams, and councillors Mrs. Kath Williams and Mrs. Penny Allen.
Thank you. And then item 4, declarations of interest. Having consulted the agenda, do we have any declarations of interest this evening, please? I think that is none. Very good, thank you. We shall therefore proceed to item 5, and this relates to questions under Council Procedure Rule 11.4. Can I pass to Mr. Haywood?
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm there are none this evening.
Thank you very much. And this brings us hastily on to item 6, which is the report of the Leader of the Council, which can be seen at page 7 onwards in your agenda pack. Can I call upon Councillor Lees to present his report, please? Councillor Lees.
Chairman. Good evening, members. I must start my report tonight with what was a privilege to witness the Queen's Baton welcome it through South Staffordshire, together with celebrating the official opening of the magnificent hub, followed by the unveiling of the memorial plaque to Councillor Brian Edwards by his son, and finally the presentation of awards. I must again thank everyone involved in pulling together this event. It showed South Staffordshire at its best. Moving to partnership services. You have the report, but a few points I would like to update you on. The Womben Empire Park. After a slight delay, the 2 new commercial units are due to be completed on the 16th of September. This will enable the 2 remaining tenants in the main building to move across these 2 units over the next 2 to 3 weeks, which enables demolition of the old main block to commence in October. Completion of the full development is still on track for spring 2023. Asset management. Officers are following are looking to finalise the procurement arrangements shortly for the roofing work across the community portfolio, which has been slightly held up due to the summer break. New signage across all of our enterprise parks are also due to be installed and completed during September. Concreting works have been completed at Landywood Enterprise Park, Great Worley, and we are also preparing options for energy-efficient decarbonising improvements at Landywood as one of our larger parks. In the report, you'll see a census of the population that was just been revealed on page 10. It is the first data release, and it shows we have a 2.10 population increase with a 24% increase in the over 65. Obviously, we've got more problems to come. The Review magazine. You may recall back in, I think it was April or May, that we decided to go online. It is due on the second or third week in September. Please remember this is a trial. It's going online for some hard copies will be delivered to key points in the area. There will be copies available for you to pick up at the hub to pass on to residents who are not online. Moving on, cost of living. Many of our residents and local businesses are worried about the cost of living crisis. The impact of rising energy bills, food, transport is widespread, and many of the most vulnerable households struggle to make their income stretch to cover the basics. Staffordshire Council and many supporting organisations are seeing rises in the number of people seeking help. We are acutely aware of the challenges of escalating prices are having on our residents, and know they are much wider on impact, affecting local authority directly, our residents and our businesses all across the district. Recognising that the Council cannot resolve all the costs of living challenges that our organisation, businesses and residents are facing, we are working with partners to do what we can to help address the crisis. However, firstly, we must wait for the new Prime Minister's plans. That's my report. If there's any questions, I will try and answer them.
Does anyone have any questions for Councillor Lees? Apparently not.
I'd like to call on Mr Terry Mason to present the planning and enterprise.
Thank you. Well, members, you've got my report in front of you. The only points I'd like to make are draw your attention to page 11, where it announces the fact that we now have a new development management manager in post, Helen Benbow, who has replaced Sue Frith, who retired. You'll note the two bits about the support we've been giving on warmer homes, but I'm afraid with what's gone on since the period covered by that report, I think it looks pretty inadequate at the moment, and we're waiting to see what support the government is going to allow us to produce in future. On the local plan, which I'm sure is the thing that you're all much more interested in, a couple of points. The Black Country plan is in a bit of disarray at the moment, with an element of disagreement between the various parties. Birmingham, their issues and options is due later this year or early next year. However, they are updating their housing and economic development needs assessment, and the indications that they're giving to our officers at the moment is that it's going to show significantly higher shortfalls. So I think I'm going to reiterate what I've said time and time again. We need to get moving with our own plan. To that end, there will be a membership workshop at the end of this month covering duty to cooperate, updates to the plan, site changes, etc. Hopefully it'll be in the last week of September. We will be sending out invites for that shortly, and we'll also be sending out a calendar of the other workshops that we'll be doing, briefing you on the proposed final publication plan and the consultation that will be going forward. We're trying to get the consultation done as early as possible, but you'll appreciate there are a lot of pieces of work to be pulled together, statements of common ground and all these other sorts of things. So we're hoping in the next week or so to finally bottom out the exact dates of everything trying to go together, and I'll update you all as soon as possible. I haven't got anything else to add, but I'm happy to take any questions.
There appears to be no questions, Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Terry. Rita, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, officers and members. All relevant information is contained within this report, but as usual, there are just a few items that I'd like to highlight. It's been a busy time once again for the team dealing with the Food Standard Agency's recovery programme following the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the inspection programmes of local authorities. Information and percentages are detailed within the relevant paragraph on page 15. It's reassuring to note that there is a high compliance rate, showing that overall businesses maintained good standards throughout the pandemic. Regular contact with businesses during COVID had a pleasing outcome as businesses continued with good practices. The FSA will undertake regular temperature checks to establish where local authorities are in line with the recovery plan. The team have had an extremely busy summer. They've worked alongside event organisers through the Safety Advisory Group so that events were safe and successful. For the first time, Camp Festival was held locally at Weston Park. It was a great success with almost 18,000 guests and staff in attendance. Details of licences granted between March and August can be found on page 15. It's very encouraging to see that organisers and the public are now feeling confident once again to attend such events. The Air Quality Annual Status Report for 2021 has been submitted to DEFRA and shows good air quality data for the district. As is to be expected, noise complaints increased during the summer months, and the team have closely monitored an event venue with a marquee which has elicited several complaints. As a result, comments have been made on the planning application. A pub in locality 3 with a large noisy extraction fan has caused problems for residents. The team are now liaising with the proprietors to take appropriate remedial action as it is considered to be a nuisance. Work is being undertaken with a rugby club to address noise issues and to regularise licensing activities. In June of this year, there was a reduction in fly tips, down to 72 from 110 in the same period in 2021. There are ongoing investigations for fly tips caught on camera, and although the process for court action is protracted, the Council will continue to pursue the matters to ensure successful prosecutions. Unfortunately, there's been an increase in fly tips in July, up from 90 to 103 compared to last year. The FPNs are for littering offences, and legal are considering one fly tipping case and one littering case for prosecution. As I've said on previous occasions, one fly tip is one fly tip too many, and so I'm pleased to note that a witness was willing to provide a statement. I can't end my report without mentioning the Council's involvement in the Commonwealth Games, the official opening of Codsall Community Hub, the unveiling of the memorial in honour of Councillor Brian Edwards MBE, and the award ceremony held in his memory. The memorial sculpture and award ceremony were fitting tributes to Brian. I hope you would all agree with that. The amount of organisation and liaison required to ensure that the Queen's Baton Relay, the cycling time trial and the official opening of the hub were successful, safe and enjoyable was massive. My sincere thanks and appreciation to all concerned. This really was South Staffordshire at its best. Thank you. If there are any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Councillor Spencer, please.
Thank you, Chair. Really just going back to the fly tipping issues, I think it's encouraging to see the amount of work that's been going on. However, you know, over 100 in a month does seem somewhat excessive. And I think it is the sort of thing that not only blights communities,
but also it has an implication for some of our residents, some just individuals, usually landowners, who are left with the bill of cleaning these things up. I did read recently in a local government publication about some councils being risk averse and not taking on some of these prosecutions. And I think it's hugely encouraging to see that this council is taking some of these people to court. And I would just like to express my thanks to the team who are pulling that together, and for someone who spent 30 years trying to improve prosecution rates. These things aren't easy to achieve, and I think we should send them all of our appreciation around what they are doing. If I could just finish, though, with also, and I don't want to go back, but as a previous RIPA authorising officer myself, a lot of these things are achieved through the RIPA regulations. And I note if we go to page 32, members wanted to see more about RIPA. RIPA is a covert means of deploying assets, usually confidential assets, cameras, of course, and things. And this council has previously lost some of those assets purely because we have published this. And I understand the balance between wanting to send a positive message. But when we identify here at the bottom of this page where we have our evidence from, and we talk about 2 overt cameras, and we also talk about a witness, I understand we want to celebrate the fact that the public are helping us. But I do think, and I just ask if we could reconsider about whether that sort of public disclosure of our tactics and our evidence gathering really is conducive to continued and improved prosecution rates. I'm sure the investigators would be more than happy to talk to individual members if you have any issues or you want to know information. I would just again stress, I just wonder the value about including some of this evidence in public facing documents. If I was going to fly tip, I'd know now where two of the cameras are to avoid. So it's a very positive response. I'm really pleased that we are taking people on and prosecuting them, and I just ask if we could reconsider about what we publish around RIPA. Thank you.
If I could just come back on that, Councillor, we don't actually say where the covert cameras are, and that's what you have to have the RIPA for, isn't it? And there's a process involved, you have to go to court to get that, but we don't advertise where those sites are. And the fact that we've got one witness statement is helpful, but sometimes that's where it's fallen down because people aren't willing to follow through. So I do think that that's encouraging, but we don't publicise where the covert cameras are. That would be defeating the object of the exercise.
I gather you wish to come back, Councillor.
Only very quickly, and I appreciate what's been said. But again, for someone who's been involved in this for many, many years, there are groups of people who pride themselves on finding our covert assets. And as soon as you publish the fact that we are deploying them, they will know where the sites are, they will know how to find them, and they do find them. And I think the history of this council in losing some of those cameras previously is evidence of that. I don't want to get into an argument, it's just a personal point of view, but I just think RIPA is confidential, it should be maintained as a confidential issue. Thank you.
Sorry, you don't wish to come back again, Councillor Heseltine? Okay. Now we'll hand over to David Williams, who offered his apologies for this evening. David is away, and he's asked me to inform you that his report is included in the papers, and if there's any questions, we'll try and answer them. If not, he will answer them by email as soon as he returns. So if there's any questions to him, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just a couple of questions that I did want to raise tonight, and if you could pass them on to David and he can answer by email, that's fine. And it's about the customer experience improvement programme. So when reporting issues, I encourage residents to report it themselves online through a report, and it's taken to the Tell My Council application. So firstly, is the Tell My Council run by a third party, and do we pay for that? And is it likely to be integrated with the new customer portal that is currently in discussion? And then my second question is, with either system that you decide to go with in the future, can it be possible that local members can automatically be notified when a report in our areas is submitted, so we can monitor that and follow up if necessary? Thank you.
I can't answer those. Does anyone here, Dave, who can answer them? It's a technical question. We'll have to come back to you. Perhaps you could email it to us and we'll make sure it goes through. So is there any other questions? If not, I'll call on Mr. Robert Reid for the Welfare Service.
Sorry about that. We have to share our mics. Cutbacks, you know. Good evening, members, and I'll just run through the points I want to raise with you. If you look at my report, you'll see that the council tax collection looks fairly rosy at this present time. But I'm afraid it's be no surprise to you that we're not expecting that to be the case in the future. And these will be watched very, very carefully, as will our quarterly meetings with our finance officers to see how our budgets are faring, so that we're keeping an eye on things and being prepared. You can see that the £150 tax rebate has gone out to 95%, 0.6%. Everybody that has been unable to be paid directly because of the way they bank, they've been notified. And although it says here the applications are finishing 31st of October, but they won't miss out. They'll get their £150 instead as a credit, so they won't lose out at all. I think that the customer services have had a pretty busy time, to say the least, and that caused quite a few calls that were coming in, and they were because of three things really: the blue bag rollout, and the fact that council taxpayer was due, and there was also the chargeable green waste, so that they were absolutely inundated with calls, and the waiting time was not acceptable. And I think that Karen Riley, who runs the services, decided to run a twilight shift, which certain elements of the calls could be diverted to take the pressure off them. He did pick up after the initial fortnight, and it's settled down now. But there were quite a lot of angry people, so they had to be very careful how they were answering their calls, and I think they've done very well. On the customer service activity, you can see that our efforts are working actually to try and get the digital world moving, and you can see that the figures show the decrease in those telephone calls and other issues, so that where we're trying to move to is actually working. I think the housing and welfare team has done extremely well with the Ukraine guest. There was a problem there, which was a personal problem, and it was not suitable, and they were able to find them an alternative property. So these things come across us, don't they? The unexpected. I think I just want to touch on that Building Better Opportunities programme. You can see that we've done quite well, and we're reaching our targets. And the mere fact that it runs out in March 23, we'll be looking for other sources of funding to try and carry on with the good work that's been given, helping people that are in difficult situations, and that barrier that prevents them from getting on. That's all I wish to say on my report, but I'm happy to take any questions if there are any. Thank you.
Councillor Cope.
Thank you, Chairman. The question is on building better opportunities. As you know, myself and Val Chapman and some members of this council were trustees to South Staff's work clubs. We recently had to cease our activities after 14 years, mainly because of funding, and in the present climate there are plenty of opportunities, vacancies around, but building better opportunities of working towards people who found it more difficult to get to the workplace. You've covered part of what I was going to ask. It was about further funding. The Building Better Opportunities came from the European Fund. Do we expect to be able to continue this service? And if we are unable to do that, I know that some of our officers from the welfare services were seconded to Building Better Opportunities. So if it does cease, is there the safeguards for those officers to come back in-house as our own staff onto the welfare side of services? Those are the real questions, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cope. You've asked the very question that I've asked Elaine Harper. And the mere fact is that we will be looking for funding to continue. I think it's a very important aspect of our work to help those people that you've just mentioned, because unless they can get that step on the leg of the ladder, you know, they can't move. And so therefore every effort will be made to ensure that we can continue this good work. Thank you.
Wants to speak. Yes, Mrs. Roberts, I believe you can help you.
Thank you. Just to point out as well that I'm sure members will be pleased that as part of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund application, and when we prepared our investment plan for that back at the end of the beginning of the summer, as part of that we recognised that the BBO was coming to an end, and actually what we've tried to do is secure funding through that in some form to be able to continue the work, at least if not all, but in part through that. And I know that the team have had those conversations in relation to the work club and some of the work to broaden that out as well, to create a greater opportunity for more people to benefit from those schemes. We're yet to hear about the response on the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. Any day now, we're hoping to have a positive response, but we'll keep members informed as soon as we do.
And my question about the staff, because obviously we need to safeguard their welfare. That's if we don't get the funding, because they'll have to return in-house as salaried officers to this authority. We've been saving money with the fact they're being seconded to this programme.
Just to confirm, we always knew that it was clearly a secondment opportunity for them, so their substantive posts have remained within the establishment, so they are all going to return to secure posts.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Now, the last one is community services, and I'd like to ask Councillor Bates to present that.
Good evening, members. Since I last addressed you in July, there's been a great deal of activity in respect of my two portfolio responsibilities, namely community services and climate change. I'd like to start off by talking about the Leisure Centre investment plan. The refurbishment plan at Penkridge Leisure Centre has now been completed, and having recently visited the site, I have to say that it's a great improvement. The refurbishment programme at Womben has commenced and will continue until 2023. However, the facility will continue to operate as normal with the minimum disturbance to customers. The next facility to benefit from the refurbishment is Cheslin Hay. The work will commence during this month and is due for completion in March 2023. The Council have now received approval from Codsall High School and the County Council, and the final surveys will be completed shortly. I want to talk about Bagridge Country Park and the Wom Brook. And I believe that Bagridge Country Park is the jewel in the Council's crown. And if you haven't visited the park, I would certainly recommend that you do so. And I'm pleased to report that a new community park has been created alongside breathing spaces. And the BCP has once again won the Green Flag Award for the 24th consecutive time. And it was also pleasing to see that Wom Brook had also received an award. In addition, the driveway into the park has currently been tarmacked and the markings have been set up. Moving on then to friends groups, I would like to thank Support Staffordshire for hosting the recent volunteer awards. And I'm pleased to report that our friends groups in Purton and Essington received awards. And I'm particularly pleased that Dave Knowles, training members of staff, and he's with the Forest of Mercia, and he won a Lifetime Achievement Award for his work with volunteers. And he's worked with officers, members, parish councillors and local groups to plant thousands of trees across the district to support climate change. So you might like to get in touch with this man or go directly to Ryan Taylor, who will put you in touch. Waste and recycling. We're still awaiting the government's stance on the National Resources Strategy, but I am pleased to report that over 30,000 permits for green waste have been purchased for the year 2022-23, and this is a very important source of income. However, there's no guarantee that this will be available in the forthcoming financial year. Moving on to climate change, work continues at a pace around how the Council will mitigate the effect of climate change throughout the district. Carbon literacy training will take place for members and staff during the autumn 2022. Further work will take place during this year to detail a costed path to net zero in future operations and budgets. Members have given online approval for the Council to prepare a document to detail EV charging on Council-owned sites. And I'm pleased to announce that the Climate Change Festival will take place on the 18th of October. Full details will be available shortly. Mr. Chairman, that completes my report, and if there are any questions, I will do my best to answer them. Thank you.
Councillor Fisher.
Someone else got Michael. Thank you, Chairman. We're pleased to know it's not a waste question this time. The council plan is for prosperous and vibrant communities, and I know this is not directly within your portfolio, but I'd just like to bring to your attention bus services. So Essington being located near the border of Wolverhampton means many residents rely on Wolverhampton for jobs as well as New Cross Hospital. Yet with no consultation with either this council or local members, Chase Rider have removed all but a few services, leaving many residents isolated and disconnected, and they have no alternative. And now I know Councillor Perry and Ryan Taylor are already looking into this, but can I ask that you use any powers of influence as Cabinet Member for Community Services for you to highlight this issue across the various parties and borders as well? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. It's something that's very close to my own heart. I live in the village of Acton Trussell, and we get 2 buses a day, and people are trying to get off to work and get back again, and it just doesn't work out. But I mean, it all comes back to money, and that money comes from Staffordshire County Council. And the man that looks after that area is David Williams. So I will take your question to David Williams and ask him to reply. Would you please send me an email explaining exactly what you want? Can you do that for me? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Hingley, I'll come on to you, Councillor Steele.
Thank you. It's actually congratulations to Councillor Bates for getting the leisure centres sorted out. I've been chewing his ear for quite a few years since he's been director, and I'm really looking forward to Womburn, especially because I've been a member there, and it'll be nice to see all the changing rooms done. And but looking by the picture, the reception looks great, and I'm sure that's the same with all of the leisure centres. So thank you very much.
Try again. Switch it. Thank you. I can't take all the credit. We have some very good officers, and those officers have worked very hard to get to this stage. But I will certainly pass your comments on. Thank you very much indeed.
Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Chairman. Although Councillor Fisher didn't ask a question on waste, I've actually got two questions. The first question is, what is our waste strategy? Because I do know that what used to be put into the blue bins, probably 20% of it, now goes into the grey bin. It certainly does in our house, because there's mixed messages coming out. So that's the first question. What is our waste strategy? And then the second one is, on page 28 of the report, it says waste and recycling. In Q1 of 22-23, we recycled 49% of waste collected. This is almost 1% higher than during the same period in 21-22. Personally, I can't see that that's accurate, because we've collected less recyclable waste in 22-23, because a lot of the recyclable material has gone into the grey bins. So I don't quite understand the percentage there. Perhaps you could clarify that for me.
Could you switch? Thank you. Right. The waste strategy, that hasn't changed at all. We've run with that successfully for a number of years. And the waste collection, plus 1%. The officers give me the figures, and I have no reason to doubt those. But what I will do, I will talk to Mark Jenkinson and ask him just to clarify that, and I'll come back to you.
If there are no further questions.
No further questions, Mr. Chairman. That is the end of my report.
Thank you very much indeed. This brings us to items 7 to 10, where you will be turning to pages 31 to 38 of the information, the pack. And these are the reports from the chairman of committees giving a brief update to the council on what has taken place in their committee since the last council meeting. As before, we will take these items together, and if any committee chairman wishes to speak, please indicate now. Yes, thank you, Councillor Kinsey.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a very brief one from me. Of course, members should not remember me at the last meeting of Overview and Scrutiny Committee because I was absent with COVID. You can see the report. Members received the Integrated Performance Management report and agreed the topics for the challenge panels. Really, Chairman, what I would like to do is just give my thanks to Councillor Bond, who was elected on the day and chaired the meeting in my stead. So thank you, Councillor Bond. Thank you, Chairman.
Are there any other committee chairman wishing to speak? You've all had an opportunity to read the reports, and it is, of course, possible that you may wish to ask a question on the basis of what you've read. So I open that also for questions. And again, I think it's safe to say that nobody is raising their hand. This brings us to item 11. This item is to appoint new councillor Andy Adams, to whom we were introduced earlier, to the Wellbeing and Select Committee and the Your Council Challenge panel. Do we have a proposer for these appointments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to propose that Andy is appointed to these two committees.
And a seconder?
Yes, I would like to second that.
And members, do we have agreement to that? Thank you very much. That's extremely helpful. Which brings us to item 12. This is something which I know members often feel quite strongly about. The next item is to appoint new members to the Independent Remuneration Panel as set out on page 2 of your agenda. Do we have a proposer for these appointments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to propose that the two appointments take place.
And a seconder, please.
Yes, I'm happy to approve to second that.
Thank you very much. Are members in agreement with these appointments? Thank you very much indeed. We now turn to item 13, page 39 of the pack. And this is a report of the Leader of the Council regarding year-end performance management. Can I call on the Leader, Councillor Lees, to present the report? Thank you, Councillor Lees.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to propose Performance Management, or IPM Report, 21-22 year-end report, and would ask that the Council review and note the report. The report provides a combined update as of the 31st of March 22 on performance, finance and risk. This includes results against performance targets set to monitor delivery of the Council Plan 2024. Looking first at performance. Overall, given the challenges that 21-22 posed, performance for the authority has been strong. At the year end of the 23 targets in place for last financial year, 16 were green, and at the year end, the 5 red and 2, as agreed, remain paused. The 5 targets rated as red, these had been raised and discussed throughout the year Cabinet, and Council will plan to put in place, address and limit their impact. 4 of the 5 were a direct impact of COVID-19. In terms of finances, continued reduction in income from leisure services, further additional burdens placed upon us from central government, and the calls to support the pandemic recovery were all managed successfully. The key financial headline is that South Staffordshire ended the financial year 21-22 broadly in line with the forecasted expectations. Details of each service are within the report. However, important to note that the authority for the first time took out long-term borrowing. This was secured at historically low interest rates, which will benefit the financial position. In order to help with the pressures of now being incurred in the 22-23 from inflation, pay and general economic uncertainty, earmark reserves have been set aside, an additional to the general fund of 625k has been made. Finally, the report sets out the authority's strategic risks. It should be noticed that COVID-19 has impacted upon the number of these strategic risks, and the Council's mitigations have been accordingly adjusted. All risks have been strongly mitigated against and are in place. No strategic risks at year-end are rated red. I'd like to propose that, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Rees, do we have a seconder?
Yes, I'm happy to second that, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any questions from members in this matter? Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just one in relation to target 13, which is maintain over 100% income percentage of operating costs of the 4 leisure centres. Now, that hasn't been achieved at all this year. So with the well-reported cost of living crisis, with income likely to drop, as you've already expressed at the start of the meeting, and with the price of energy, especially over winter, set to increase massively, I'm sure that's going to impact our operating costs, making it even harder to achieve. So is the work going on to see how sustainable that is in the long term, or is it that target even still realistic to expect over the next few years?
The question is the target realistic? Is that what you're saying? Well, I think we're going to have trouble meeting the target, but we'll have to see what happens, because with the refurbishment as well, we're getting a drop-off in some of the membership. But I don't know whether Lennon wants to comment any further.
I really want to comment, Leader, but it's, as the Leader said, it's something that we are looking at as a Cabinet, and we're very mindful of the situation. So we'll certainly come back to you on that one. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. That gap's obviously only going to get bigger, and it just, to me, seems a bit unachievable. Thank you.
Councillor Spencer.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, it's a very similar point around item 13. We've already heard about the leisure centre investment plan. And a big attraction to all leisure centres, of course, are swimming pools. And a local authority leader once told me there's nothing more expensive for a local authority than a swimming pool. And unfortunately, fortunately, we seem to have several of them. I know that we haven't yet heard, and hopefully we'll have some indication on Thursday about any help with regard to that, but swimming pools are very expensive things to run. I would just add to that point and say, can we be reassured that it is on the agenda, and Councillor Bates assures us that it is, and actually that we are looking at how we can, if at all possible, maintain and keep all of our swimming pools open. Thank you.
Can I come back? We talked about that this afternoon in informal Cabinet, and our leader said that he swims at Womben, and he was suggesting that we turn the heating down slightly on the pool so we can save some money. But we are aware of the situation, and we'll keep our eye on it. Thank you.
You wish to comment on that, Dave?
Okay, thank you very much. If I just could come in on there, not on the swimming comment, but just on the challenges around cost of living. I think Councillor Lees has already flagged up. We're introducing a comprehensive cost of living checklist, and there's 3 aspects to it. There's the internal working, so how we work as a council internally, the impact and what we need to do. So we'll be looking at a whole range of things in terms of how we can make more efficiencies, how we can improve cost efficient savings, so there'll be a number of things that we'll be looking to meet, but we'll be doing the same around our support to businesses and also support to the wider community. But in terms of our own facilities, our own council, we know there's a number of challenges that we need to meet, and we'll certainly be working that one through. In respect to the leisure centres, we've got quite an active programme. The refurbishment work will make a hell of a difference in terms of closing that gap, and we know it will attract new members when it's all completed in future years. So we'll be continually doing and offering a number of packages to attract users into all our facilities. But we'll be very mindful going forward.
The other thing, Mr. Chairman, is we want to remember that the swimming pools and the leisure centres are shared with the schools. And so we have got shared costs with the schools.
Councillor Spencer, I'm not sure if you wish to come back at all.
No, thank you for that. I think it's encouraging to hear that it is on the agenda and we've got those things already in place. I do think with this current explosion in cold water swimming, I seem to see quite a lot of, then turning the temperature down a few degrees might well attract a few more people. Thank you.
Before we move on, are there any further questions on any of the matters that have been raised in this part of the meeting? I see no signals. So is it your wish that the recommendation be carried? Those in favour, please, can we have a show of hands? Sorry, do I need to... No, that's fine. You're all doing your stuff. Thank you. I think it's yes. Yes, that would appear to be unanimous, and thereby the motion is carried. Thank you very much. We now turn to item 14, Chairman's announcements. Before I do the announcements, I very much want to share with you a message we received from Barbara Edwards. And it reads as follows. Being heard okay? Oh, thank you. I was anxious that my thanks and that of my family were conveyed to the Council as a whole for the events on Saturday. This is, of course, a reference to the opening of the hub and the unveiling of the statue, the sculpture, to remember Brian's time as leader. The sculpture was amazing and a striking representation of the district. The official opening of the hub was significant as its development had formed the official opening of the hub was significant, I repeat, because it's a complete sentence and needs to be expressed in full, as its development had formed a large part of Brian's council life. The awards were a lovely idea and reflected Brian's care for the community. Thank you to the council for organising such a memorable day. From Barbara Edwards. Now, Chairman's announcements. I hardly know where to start. I think perhaps the highlight of the last period, since the last meeting, was the opening of the hub. That was a wonderful day, hugely successful, and I certainly feel tremendous gratitude, as I'm sure you all do, to the officers of this council who worked together to get the sort of outcome that we so much enjoyed and which we can be so very proud of. I did have a number of civic events to attend. Once was a historic rendition of Nell Gwyn by a historian, a lady who does a whole series of characters from history. And I believe I'm going to another one shortly. I went, particularly significant was a visit to the Cannock war graves. I don't know how many of you have visited these war graves, but it's a tremendous place, wonderful experience. And I bring the thing together. The following evening, we had a friendship meeting in which at the Kingswood Trust, whereby the young people from Germany and from this country came together, offered us entertainment, and it was an absolutely wonderful evening. And it left me completely convinced that the Germans want peace as much as we do, and indeed anybody who doesn't must be a pretty crazy guy, and we have one at the moment, I'm sorry to say. Little bit of a snippet is that the German youngsters were handing out soft drinks, and somebody happened to ask them where they'd got them from, and the answer was Lidl, not Lidl, but Lidl. It's rather like IKEA and IKEA. You know, there's the one that the people from the country would use, those who are have that as their first language, and the ones that we choose to apply erroneously, I suspect. I've also attended a number of Civic Sundays, Telford and Wrekin, which was an unusual experience and highly memorable. Tamworth and Uttoxeter's Civic Sundays. Next week, my wife and I are going to Walsall Arboretum, and on Wednesday the 14th we have the croquet event as part of the fundraising programme, and we have a reasonable turnout for the croquet event, I'm delighted to say. Looking further forward in December, we are already booked into 3 carol concerts at other venues. So there we are. I'm very much enjoying the experience of being chairman. What I would say, however, by way of a word of advice, those of you who have not previously been chairman and may have ambitions to do so, I would say that it's a pretty demanding schedule. You're constantly busy, you're constantly cross-checking your diary. People change dates. If there's one thing that really messes things up, it's a change of dates, because you don't enter it into all your various prompts. You get confused very quickly. However, on the other hand, it's a pretty good experience, and really, on balance, I would recommend it. Now, at that stage, I'm going to declare the meeting closed. But before we leave, I would just remind you that, as always, and I'm saying this particularly for the benefit of our newer members, have refreshments both in the members' room and in the cafe area. And I may say, incidentally, that we have a different caterer supplying the buffet. So any comments you have, you know, maybe you could share them with Mr. Haywood, who would be delighted to take. In any event, please do join myself and my consort for the refreshments following this meeting. Thank you very much for attendance and your attention.
Thank you. Please stand whilst the chairman and vice chairman leave the council chamber.